So with that, we're now going to move to um, a panel session now, where we will have, for the first time today, Ericsson joining us as well. Dustin, are you on? Maybe I'll invite you first.
Hey, Nanda.
Hey, and nice to see you. And
Good to see
also
you.
inviting on Gianluca Fawad and Robert Greiner, if he's still available, but he was a bit unwell after his earlier thing, and of course Rajiv as well. Okay, so I think Dustin, do you want to do a short sort of intro? Everyone else is known to the audience and has spoken earlier already, and also I'd like to say this is the first time that Ericsson's appearing on Uptime, so we really welcome your presence here. And for the benefit of the audience, there is immediately after this, there's a session from Ericsson on their view. I know lots of people have been asking since last November, after some news from other industry players, what is Ericsson's sort of offering in private 5G? It's going to be answered today. So those of you who've stayed on, you're going to hear that. And for those who were on much earlier in the day, that'll be recorded. Catherine as well from Future Technologies. And Catherine has been on both private 5G on both sides of the Atlantic, in Europe as well, and now back in your native US, maybe even your native Texas.
That's correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with that, Dustin, a few words of intro, and then we'll start the session.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm actually joining you from Texas, so
okay,
awesome.
I'm in the Ericsson headquarters today. Usually I'm based in Florida, but so I've been with Ericsson for 5 years, almost to the day, and before that I was with Nokia for 20 years. So I've been doing telecom for a long time. The last 10 years, more or less, I've been focused on private cellular, and within that realm, I've really been focused on business development, and that's what I do here at Ericsson. I lead a global team that's focused on business development. We happen to be organized primarily by vertical industry, and those are the verticals that are buying the private 5G solutions, as well as I have a device and ecosystem team in Sweden that does the testing and certification for the devices that are inbound attaching to our network. So Nanda, I really appreciate being part of Uptime this year, and maybe we can make it an annual occurrence going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Catherine, welcome to you as well. Your first appearance today.
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 Yeah, the second time in Uptime.
We had you in person last time.
That's right.
Yeah. But first appearance today. So if you can introduce yourself to the global audience.
Thanks, Nanda. I'm Catherine Gull, and I work for Future Technologies in the USA. My first experience with private networks was in 2014, where I sold the first private network in an airport in the world, or that's what the press release said, to Heathrow Airport.
You're right. It was. I can confirm it was. Yeah.
Okay, good. And subsequently did one of the first ports probably the first port in Western Europe, in the UK as well. That port has kept their private network going since then and has just upgraded to 5G, so that's fantastic. And they're introducing AMRs, so that's a really key thing. I joined Future Tech last January and moved back to the US from Europe. I was in the UK and then in Spain. So I'm really thrilled to be here from this side of the pond.
Excellent. So, Catherine, maybe we'll stick with you for the first question. On the subject of robotics, AMR, drones, autonomous physical AI, just if you can take about just a minute, just what experience do you have on your networks of having deployed or deployed any of these?
So,
and what's the demand like?
So I think there's two things. First, yes, we have experience doing that, and I think if you were on the conference earlier today, My boss, Pete Cappiello, alluded to a deployment that we have in Georgia with a car manufacturer, where we deployed a private 5G network specifically for the use of AMRs in manufacturing. So I can talk a little bit about that. The push and pull on AMRs and humanoid robotics, I think it has a lot to do with what we're experiencing in the world with regard to AI. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it keeping people in jobs? Is it taking people's jobs? Does it keep people safer, or is it just a job suck? And so that's a real challenge I think we have to face. But from a technical perspective, it is phenomenal. AMRs do keep people safe. They keep things more efficient. But from a private networks perspective, I think that's where the game changer is, with mobility, and creating the mobility platform, communication platform that an AMR needs or a humanoid robot needs. We've been working with Hyundai just recently announced, which I had not seen it anywhere else, that by 2028, their company, Boston Dynamics, they were planning to build and deploy 30,000 humanoid robots into their manufacturing plant. I mean, can you imagine what that looks like? And 2028 is not that far away.
Excellent.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, sure. Dustin, Ericsson, I'm sure, is the forefront of a lot of these deployments and one of the go-to people when companies are thinking of deploying AMRs, robotics, etc. So could you give us a brief?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I'll try to not lean into Ericsson is great to make this an Ericsson commercial. I'll try to,
You've got that coming afterwards.
Yeah. No, I'll tread lightly, I promise. What I took some notes just before the meeting, and what we are seeing AGVs, AMRs, cobots being deployed. I have one slide on robot dog. I think we've all seen a robot dog by now, but actually doing proper work as well. So, but if I step back from that and I kind of see what the trends are. First of all, one of the trends we're seeing at Ericsson is around the complexity of connectivity, and getting into maybe the depth of that. It's not simple enough just to have an IP layer connected to a robot. What we're seeing is we need to support very complex, very demanding industrial protocols. Profinet's top of mind. We've been doing a lot of testing with Profinet and ProfiSafe, and these type of protocols are safety critical, as the name would indicate. And it's not just about having bandwidth or latency. It's about being very deterministic with the properties of the network. Things like jitter become really important. And then maybe the other trend, and this will be my final point, it's all about connectivity today. I think in the future, it's going to be more about intelligence. And so what the connectivity is enabling with robotics is the ability to offload the intelligence. So take the intelligence off the robot, off the device, and centralize that. So what that means is you can take those GPUs that are both expensive, heavy, and power hungry, and you can centralize that. So the network stops becoming just connectivity, and it starts becoming more of the nervous system for the 30,000 robots that are going to be deployed. But of course, that gives you, as a factory owner, for example, scale of economies where you could pull things like GPU resources, share those across multiple robots, so you don't have isolated resources out there. Also give you centralized control, command, and coordination across the fleets that may be deployed. So I think getting into the weeds on like Profinet and ProfiSafe and the other industrial protocols out there that are being used with robotics, and kind of looking toward the future where we're creating a nervous system and not just the connectivity, are kind of the two things that are top of mind for me.
Okay, super. Gianluca, it's about 5 hours since we heard from you last. So hopefully you've had a good rest. So
No, actually, I had a few other things. No, but I think it is very interesting to see this moving, and also robotics. I think it would be a very nice kick into the capability of private networks. I think from where we stand, I think we need to make them even smaller, and we need to make them even more portable. Because some of these robots will continue to move, and we'll need to have connectivity between them wherever they move. So that's why we kind of concentrated into this part, which is, maybe arguably, is not looked at it so much. It was really confined before for kind of defense or public safety type of things. I think robotics will really kind of unlock and really need to have this type of connectivity kind of on board. I mean, our show. I mean, our in CCW, we show basically a humanoid carrying a rucksack, doing a 5G network and talking to a couple of robot dog and do video streaming. I think that's more or less the type of vision there is, and of course, it's very interesting this fact of the GPU becoming part of the capability that networks offer. We actually totally agree that this is sort of going to be one of the deployment scenarios. The fact that the AI will and can be made in a way that basically it doesn't need to be always in the cloud, but it come very closer to the edge. That's one possibility, and also the other possibility is the fact that the intelligence is not always on board of the robots, although it needs to be a little part needs to be there, but it can also be a little bit offloaded for coordination, as was said by Dustin before. But I think it's really interesting the way that this will be deployed. So we are kind of concentrating, trying to give our contribution in making the stuff smaller, and portable.
Okay. And I'm doing this in order of the most time since they last spoke. That's how I've had to come up with some way in terms of how to prioritize people. So Fawad next, and then Rajiv. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Great to see you, Rajiv, Catherine, Gianluca, and nice to meet you, Dustin. Nanda, I will ask you to repeat the question, but I think it was about...
Any experience of deploying autonomous stuff? I think in your case, you've done some drones and stuff like that, right? And so, where does the 5G network come in, perhaps, in...
Yeah, drones, AMR, AGVs, even forklifts. The challenge is, I think, what was mentioned, what Dustin was saying, Profinet. Means back in 2019, I was working with one of the clients in Europe, and they were using Ericsson gear, but the challenge was to figure out what's going to happen with when the machines are able to grab different attachments and they don't know if the attachment is correct. Like they needed even a much lower latency communication to grasp that, and we have to look at the network differently. We broke down the network. Like it cannot be a device to a radio. It has to be in between device to radio and aspects of it. So the advancement has gone now. Those problems are solved. Now next level of problems are there, which is the orchestration element comes into the play. I was not recently, but a year or two ago, I think one of the part was forklifts. We were doing forklifts in a large manufacturing, but the challenge was, okay, we need human and forklift to work together, but then making sure the forklifts actually can not just work, but it needs to be operated behind the laptop and can be orchestrated as a gamification aspect of it. So we're creating a whole new interface on top of it. Means the network is doing what it's supposed to do, reliable connectivity, but then aspects of integrating and overall overlaying and orchestration on top of it, and the feasibility of how easier and manufacturing floor level employee to work with that aspect. So that's required training, development aspect to bring them up to speed. So those were the few challenges I was working quite recently with the tier one. I think the global after COVID, the CEO of the company was sharing that everyone started ordering Amazon, and which is great. Amazon made a lot of revenue out of it. But what impact it had in the value chain is everyone wanted a forklift because there was so many warehouses. You needed a forklift. And they had backlog of 2 years to deliver forklifts. But the challenge was there were no forklift operators. So they had to really redesign the forklift to become more autonomous, but also keep in mind that the people would be the same. They would be the same employees, which used to drive forklifts. Now they are sitting behind laptops. So they are thinking, but that gamification element was something was quite intriguing and was interesting to develop together with the client and build that solution out. But that was quite good. Yeah.
Rajiv?
Well, good to meet everybody. I think, can I start with the obvious statement? I think robotics is the killer app if all of us want private 5G to be massively successful. So I think this is the one panel we are all doing where none of us, to the advice given to us in our customer panel by Robert, none of us are competitors. We are 100% aligned that we want robotics running on private 5G. So that's the obvious statement I want to make, because that drives 3 critical points that I would love for this panel to engage in. And I'm here to learn and discuss more than just share. Number one is, I think, yes, all of us, I think, are doing now early deployments, I would call it, of AMRs, humanoids, automated forklifts, autonomous vehicles of all types on private 5G. I think we are learning technically the problems to be solved. I think Dustin hit the nail on the head. There's a series of protocols. I think there is actually a different traffic pattern that we have to get used to and build for. We have to accommodate that traffic pattern while serving the traditional traffic patterns of connected workers. All of those are technical challenges, but I genuinely believe, the community has it, the technology has it in it. That's what a lot of 5G was built for, and I think we know how to do that. The 2 more critical challenges that I think we are challenged by is, I would like us to take on the challenge of how does a robotics manufacturer bring private 5G into their stack in the first place? Firstly, how do they even decide that they need this? And then how do they get past the friction of that? So, and I want to dwell on that a little. And third is, I think Dustin nailed it when we say that we have a vision of the private 5G being a nervous system. I violently agree with it. But there is candidly an ecosystem of the edge chip world that I would suspect today is not even thinking private 5G or wireless for that matter. And so for them to re-architect their system in a completely different way, where the intelligence is no longer on board, but is instead in these things, we can either do it 2 ways. We can wait for their existing solution to fail / be too expensive and therefore not be deployed and then react, or we can, as an ecosystem, get ahead of it and do this. And I think those are the second and third are both not necessarily purely technical, but big educational challenges. So what we are observing in the market, in addition to the deployments, is we have customers who have tried early deployments on Wi-Fi, failed, gone back to the robotics manufacturer and told them we really want this on private 5G, and then gotten a pushback saying that's not on our roadmap. Because that is, number one, additional cogs on our robot that we don't want to take on. Candidly, we don't have the R&D team that is capable of doing wireless connectivity. And third, it is way down on our priority list when we are actually developing the next generation of physical AI models. It just is not top of mind enough. And so we see a whole series of customers stalled at that chicken and egg, because the robotics manufacturer is saying, well, you don't have a network yet, so what am I building for? And the customer is like, I don't build a network because my main application I need it doesn't support you. So I think as an ecosystem, to me, that would be the pinpoint, I would say. And I think if we can break that chicken and egg, then everything follows.
Right. Rajiv, that's incredible. That was actually my next question was going to be exactly that, which is that we all agree that robotics needs private 5G, but has anyone sent the memo to the robotics manufacturer, right? So maybe let me ask Dustin, as Ericsson, you're a large 26-30 billion market cap behemoth, largest player, the gorilla in the room, and the person that is probably leading the charge on that. What can you say about the thinking amongst the robotics manufacturers? Have they got the memo? Have they noted it? Has it gone into the bin? What's happening? You're muted.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm glad I'm in violent agreement with our chief. That's always a good place to be. But I think the memo might have gone to their junk mail folder, because I haven't seen the action on that side, right? It's interesting because we have a smart factory here in Texas where we build 5G radios, and we have AGVs, and the AGVs were, Wi-Fi based. And of course, we can't have Wi-Fi AGVs in our factory. We're Ericsson, so we had to retrofit our own AGVs, and of course we put cradle points in them. What else would we do? But on one of them, there's a little plexiglass window, so you can see that there's actually a cradle point 5G device for the connectivity. But I absolutely agree. It is a chicken and egg, and the manufacturers of the robotics that I've talked to, the last thing they want to do is create an additional barrier of entry. Hey, you need this, in their mind, not in our minds, but this big, complex, expensive 5G network to connect, my product to. They don't want to create that barrier of entry. So it almost seems like, I'm a biz dev guy, so I'm always looking for business opportunities. It almost seems like there could be a market for the adaptation that takes the ownership of this and does the integration, because sometimes the integration is complex. Sometimes it's as simple as connecting to IP on the AGV or something, but sometimes you need, CAN bus integration, you need, low voltage integrations, etc. This service does exist out there for, you take like United Rentals, every one of their heavy pieces of equipment that they rent is actually connected. At one time, I don't know if it's still true today, but all those pieces of heavy equipment flowed through Kansas City to an integrator. An integrator did exactly that. They put a modem basically on the piece of equipment, connected it to the cloud, so it could be tracked, and telematics could be used. So I don't know that I have a golden bullet here, but I certainly agree that it is a challenge. It's chicken and egg. We at Ericsson are looking at ways to bridge that gap and trying to make that a unique place in the market. To date, we have not been wildly successful with that, but we are working very deeply with the ecosystem players. So part of my team is ecosystems. They're device and ecosystem, which goes hand in hand here. And a lot of times what we see is that the robotics manufacturers are, even getting something that's more mundane, like an IP camera or something, and we're trying to connect it to the network. The fact that we have a portfolio of devices and modules and integrated modules and stuff like that can be pulled off the shelf and used, and we know it's going to work, from that module to the network. That piece is solid, it's tested, it's certified. Then it's just the integration piece on the other side. So it doesn't remove the barrier of entry, but it reduces the risk and the time to market.
Catherine, you talked about the AMR deployments that you had. How many memos did you have to write?
Actually, that's one of the things that I vehemently agree with everyone so far. One of the big challenges is the integration, and writing the memos to say, actually, you're delivering these beautiful AMRs, that's gorgeous, but the antennas are in the wrong place. If you put something on top of the AMR, you can't see the antenna anymore. The device is not ready. So one of the things that we had to do in our deployment in this manufacturing plant is we spent a lot of time in integration, working with the company, working with the AMR manufacturer, and saying, how do we make this work? Because as I think Rajiv said, you choose to do AMR, you put the Wi-Fi in, you press go, and then it falls flat on its face. And then you got to do something. Now, this manufacturer said, we're not going to do that. But then we had to retrofit everything. I was at a conference, a very big manufacturer of AMRs and other equipment for manufacturing in the fall. And somebody in there said the guys who manufacture the AMRs, they do not want to do anything but Wi-Fi, even though it doesn't deliver what their customer wants. So it's a huge challenge, and it is about integration. Again, it's about once it's up and running, it's going to be up and running for 10 plus years. Just like my port is now, they are doing AMRs on the port, but it takes a huge heavy lift.
Hey, just real quick, I just want to interject here. I actually had a conversation with a robotics manufacturer, and I was proposing, hey, let's work to get 5G integrated into your solution. And they felt threatened by that because they had actually invested into making their robotic solution work better over Wi-Fi than their competition. So therefore, they were using that as a competitive advantage in the market.
That is spot on. We face this all the time when we will bring this up. They'll basically say, look, if number one, as Dustin said, we have worked on making it work over Wi-Fi. And if others haven't, we want to use it as an advantage. But on the other side, if we then go out and say you need private 5G, our competitors are going to say that's because they didn't make it work on Wi-Fi. And so they're incurring a new cost on you. So it is, I think, the greatest challenge of this problem statement. Actually, one concrete thing I would just bring out, Dustin, if you know this integrator who can do this, I think we should all co-invest in that 1 or 2 or 3 people and just start really, really doing this. I would 100% go for that.
So Catherine is the right answer. So I think, taking what Rajiv said, and Nanda, should you not, because we have always some work for you, should we not kind of start to track this type of robotics deployment for the entire ecosystem? Because I think what Rajiv was saying is really, we are missing a point where we actually, as an ecosystem comes. I think this will be benefit to everyone. Another couple of points though. We are working with startup because startups, they are more, and we are looking at integrating 5G, but they are a startup. And what they do is actually they build a system that connects to the robot, and they have a little NVIDIA running and a modem connecting, a 5G modem connecting. And what they do with this is basically they give a little bit of intelligence to the system, to the robots, and of course then they control it via the cloud and all the rest. They do it there. So I think some of the work are there. Another things that I want to bring up, the robot that they're using is Unitree. Now, you guys are in the US, and maybe Unitree is not allowed, but they're Chinese. They have this type of robots, they actually dance. They do all sort of things, and they have a 5G modem inside. Because these guys, they actually are coming from a country where 5G is widely adopted. So I don't know if only these guys are doing it, but what I'm saying with this, I think there is an ecosystem and some people understand it. I think we need to share it more. Nanda, you of course are always our candidate to do this type of job for the next sub time. So to track this, perhaps it would be nice. And I think we need to work and having references, because references are really important. And we have few references. These guys were showing robots that will stop if they were using Wi-Fi around the corner, as we all know. But if they have private 5G, they will continue working. So
do you think the Unitree robot actually had a 5G modem
inside?
You didn't have to. Okay, right.
No, so sorry. He had a 5G modem inside, but this startup company decided that they wanted to put on top of this, their NVIDIA chipset and a modem, because they want to control what they're sending out and all the rest. So they want to do the radio. So there is a difference. My understanding is there is a difference from the people that do robotics and people that do the intelligence. People do robotics, they just need to do things that moves, and they have really a little layer of intelligence. The people that do the intelligence for robotics, they tend to put something a little bit external, which can, in my view, sit also on a private network, which is close enough to them, but maybe not. Maybe they just split it in the architecture. This really needs to be discussed. I think we're really early days. So we find out that startup may be more collaborative to do this type of job. But I agree, if we find the big guys that tell us yes, and if we go into Boston Dynamics and we show them how we used to do, and then putting a system on top of the robots and then carry over, I think we just need to spell out the goal.
Let me get Fawad's opinion on this. Fawad, are we being, as a 5G community, too demanding? Because when you think of Wi-Fi, when it first started, it came on dongles, right? It's only, today, the idea of sticking a dongle into your computer or sticking a dongle into anything, just you expect everything kind of built in. But Wi-Fi started that way. We stuck in dongles. We had, in fact, we had those long PCMC, can't remember what those cards were. It was cards that we used to have to stick in, and all kinds of stuff. And it's only when the demand got to a certain size that, it was Apple, I think, who first came up with the thing of we're going to have Wi-Fi built in, because Steve Jobs just hates dongles and cables and all of that stuff. So are we being too petty as a 5G industry? Maybe we need to start with some dongles and things like that, and then see it grow. What is your view as someone who's out there in the field deploying actual stuff?
No, I think we got everything. I do agree with the panel here. It's some of the OEMs doesn't want to go just because, and there could be many reasons. And I wanna say most of the robotics and this is just because of my conversation with them, they would go 5G very soon. It's just that they are keeping the cards within themselves. And I work in the public sector, so I can share that. So this is like when I was in the private sector. And OEMs that have their AGVs, AMR, I can share that in the aspects when we had to make things work. When you bring the engineers into a small room, hey, make it work. We zip tie a dongle of 5G with the SIM card to make it work, just because it has to work. And then we had to orchestrate the dance of everything on a big warehouse or a big factory to make sure that it works as it's supposed to. So it is, I think it's the matter of time. It is going to go in, including large robotics. They would, I was speaking with a chipset manufacturer. They clearly see that it is getting, when 5G came, and I think still today, the price of chipset on 5G is high. And it is going down, undoubtedly. It is getting cheaper and cheaper. But it is also coming to the point where it is going to be part of, similar to Wi-Fi in any and all ecosystem. It's just, I think, time. When it comes to this, what we are doing at the city, we have a private 5G network. Device vendor comes, I always tell them, please do your homework before you come to us, because we have a network and it's public. We have a private 5G network. We're not going to put a device that is not compliant. We would like to put a dual SIM device, definitely, but not just operator or SIM card devices, because the goal for the city is to actually operate in our network. So we go through that, and they do come back and come with new ideas. We are working with one of the OEMs where we are creating a very customized solution to see how it can benefit that customized use case. And once it does, they'll go and share it with other cities. So I think my aspect, I would say the dongle days were there. They are history. We are moving forward. Chipsets are going more advanced. Luca said the AI is part of all the things. The more data they collect, the more high-speed bandwidth they need. And that's where the 5G would be part of it.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I think, we could spend a lot of time talking about robotics and 5G. Thanks for all of your contributions. And now to close the day, to answer the question that everyone's been waiting for pre-MWC, what is Ericsson up to in private 5G? I'd like to hand over to Dustin and thank all the panelists for being here and sharing their knowledge with us. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Nanda.
Thank you.
See you at MWC.
See you
Thanks,
at
everyone.
MWC.
Thank you,
Over to you, Dustin.
Yeah, thank you. I had some slides and we sent them over. I don't know if you have those, Nanda. Okay.
Oh, I have them. Do you want me to share them for you? Yeah.
Yeah, would you mind?
No problem.
I'm working on like a really small screen here.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
I'm old and I have bad eyes.
Yeah. Let me just download it.
So as you're doing that, I can go ahead and get started for the sake of time.
You can.
First slide is just a title slide, and I was just going to maybe introduce myself in a little bit different manner. So long time in telecom, 5 years at Ericsson, and I'm focused on business development. My business development team, as I mentioned, is focused on industry vertical, and I can't share percentages, but the vast majority of our global business is going to be in certain key verticals, and so my team's organized around that. So we have mining, transportation, which of course includes seaports and airports, energy, which is primarily going to be oil and gas, and then manufacturing. Globally, that's one of our largest verticals. So we invest pretty heavily into those. When I say invest, that means both R&D resources. So as you can imagine, each of those verticals have certain requirements of the network that may be somewhat unique. But also from a human capital point of view, from like my team having dedicated resources to that, to marketing teams as well, to engage with that market. All right, I'm seeing the slides now. Thanks, Nanda.
Yeah. I don't know if the rest of my window is showing. Yeah.
We're reading your email now. The last thing I want to talk about on the introduction, because I think it's germane for this conversation, is I do have a global team. I have an organization that's focused on emerging markets. So we get into APAC, Africa, even some could consider Latin America from a 5G perspective, private 5G perspective, to be emerging, and then also emerging verticals, because of course the four verticals I talked about, that's not only where our business is coming from. It's coming from entertainment, it's coming from healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a very fortunate place to view the market from, I believe. So hopefully what I'm presenting here will, number one, resonate, but also maybe bring some value to the audience as well. So first slide of substance. And by the way, I only plan to talk for about 20 minutes here, and then I'll leave it open for conversation and questions. But there's a lot of different ways to look at a market, and I like this. This is something the marketing team, I think they invented. I'm going to give them credit for that. From my perspective, this is more of kind of a use case view of the market. It could also be from a portfolio as well, because if we look at the top of the triangle there, we have mission critical, and at least in Ericsson's world, mission critical is a different solution set. I happen to know that's true for Nokia as well. That solution set is a lot more focused.
This finishes in 6.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of background noise there. Anyway, that solution set is going to be a lot more, have a lot more in common with the macro cellular networks. I think a really good example is at Ericsson, we play in the utility space. It's a huge vertical for us from an overall organization.
Okay.
Within the utility space.
Thanks to you.
Hey, Nanda, can you mute? Sorry, I'm getting some noise from you. Anyway, in the utility space, it's a big vertical for us. With our EP 5G solution, which is more of a focus for industry critical, we still play in the utility space, but we play more in the generation space, where you're going to have like one controlled location that's generating that. Whereas the mission critical team is more for the distribution, where that may be across an entire area, maybe even an entire country. And on the second block on the pyramid, on the industrial, that's really a kind of what I think is our sweet spot from Ericsson's point of view. And the use cases there are really centered around production. And I'm sorry, can you go back to, yeah, thank you. Yeah, pyramid slide. within that industrial pyramid, or in the industrial slice there in the pyramid, like I said, the use cases are about production. So these are use cases that directly impact production. You can think maybe in a mine, this would be the equipment that's doing the drilling or the hauling or something. Whereas business critical, this is going to be more of a supporting the production. So this would be more like, safety checks and stuff like that. And then as you get to the bottom with the non-critical, I always jokingly call that cat videos, and probably better served by Wi-Fi, but that's not entirely true. There's actually a high demand for just basic connectivity. And that could even be basic connectivity in an operating technology and OT environment. We see that as well. All right, if you go to the next slide. First reference here is around Lufthansa cargo. And with Lufthansa, this is business critical, so I'm going to kind of reference back to that triangle. This is a classic example of a 5G engagement for Ericsson. I can imagine this is true for the entire industry. They have a problem to solve, and that is really about connectivity. Connectivity is very important. They're trying to do scanning, under the wing or in the cargo hull of the aircraft, and Wi-Fi is just not penetrating. 5 gigahertz is not penetrating. So this is starting as a coverage play. Now we, of course, are engaged. We're both expanding this across, multiple markets, but also we're looking at expanding use cases here. And in this particular case, we have our partner Zebra with the scanners to be able to provide that connectivity solution that meets their needs. So, very basic, almost rudimentary from, we just came off a panel talking about, 5G and robotics and nervous systems and offloading GPU workloads and stuff like this. This is about getting IP connectivity under the wing of an aircraft. Sometimes, these engagements are that straightforward. Not always simple, but straightforward. All right, if you can go to the next one, please. I think the next one, yeah, this is Hitachi. So this is, I mentioned I had a robot dog. I think we've all been seeing these dogs in the industry for many years. Maybe they were more entertaining 5 years ago than they are today. We were joking and saying what we've done is we've taught an old dog new tricks. So here with Hitachi and their smart factory, I believe that's in Maryland. The essence of what we're doing here is we're loading up a robot with sensors, connecting it over 5G, and then deploying that. And that can be used for a myriad of different use cases. I think safety inspections are probably the most tangible, maybe the most critical there. Safety inspections in places where maybe you don't want to send people. So it's a matter of being safety critical by being able to remove people from that. By the way, we will have a demo. I'm almost certain this is on our demo schedule for Mobile World Congress. We demoed it at India Mobile Congress. I think that was just a couple months ago, maybe in October, if I remember correctly, where we're working with Hitachi to do rail inspections. So you can imagine, this robot dog going into a rail yard and going underneath the trains while they're obviously parked, and doing things like looking for welds that are broken or for brakes that are, working correctly, etc. So I would say it's more of a generic use case where you have a sensor array that essentially you're putting on a mobile robot that's 5G connected. So you can imagine there's a lot of peripheral use cases from this. All right, if you head to the next slide, we're going to talk about SimPOR, I believe. Yeah, so cement. Cement, first thing that leaps to your mind when you think about a cement plant is high tech, right? So this is an interesting one where this is a recent win for us in Europe, and SimPOR, their challenge. It's a resource heavy industry with challenging margins, where the resources also include energy and there's an environmental impact. So, business outcomes are how do we become more environmentally effective, and also how do we become more financially effective. I used to make the joke that, people go green when there's green in it, talking about the greenback. But SimPOR is essentially doing that, right? So they're taking technology, they're applying that across multiple use cases that includes things like inspections, remote assistance for working on complex equipment, VR for training, etc. You guys can read the slide. I think what's most impactful there is at the bottom where we have the business outcomes. Saving $1 million per year just on the preventative maintenance alone. So going from a very legacy industry, a very heavy industry, to applying high tech, and then having these great business outcomes. Yeah, I wouldn't share them if I had them, but I don't have all the details. But I know that this has been highly effective for Sempor, and they're looking at more broadly deploying this across their multiple plants. All right, if you go to the next slide. I think this is my last slide of substance, and this is one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Newmont was a opportunity 5 years ago when I first joined Ericsson. We started that engagement. Ericsson is very deep in mining, and yes, I do mean to make that pun. We also have a deep relationship with Newmont, and what we've seen over the years is them shifting to moving toward remote piloting of their vehicles and into autonomous piloting of their vehicles. When I say vehicles, I'm talking about earth movers. These are huge pieces of equipment, and of course, the safety and connectivity challenges within a mine are extremely paramount. One takeaway, it's not on the slide, but one where it was kind of the aha moment for me was that I believe Newmont operates the largest gold mine in the entire world, which is not a bad thing to do when gold's $5,000 an ounce. But they had implemented the technology for their haulage, and their production had gone up because of the autonomy, because of the remote piloting, etc. So 1 year their ore quality actually went down, but their production went up. Their yield actually went up, and I'm probably getting all those terms wrong because I'm not a gold miner. But from a business point of view, the quality of your input went down, yet the production of your output went up, and that's because they were becoming a lot more efficient at moving the materials at this location. And once that happened, I was speaking with their former, I think, CIO, and he said, we need to deploy this as fast as we can, as many places as we can. And so, of course, we're in the process of doing that together with Newmont. All right, if you go to the last slide, please. All right, so just a simple summary. I think the question was kind of a view from Ericsson's point of view. And if I look at the industry, and like many people on here, I've been in the industry for a long time. In the past, it was really about coverage and connectivity. It was basic, and we still see that today. The Lufthansa opportunity that we were able to close recently that I presented, it was all about connectivity and coverage. Coverage happens to be underneath an airplane wing. But what we're seeing is a lot more of the innovative stuff, right? The cutting edge stuff, like we were talking about on the robotics panel. We're seeing use cases that have higher requirements of the network, not just, hey, can I get connectivity and throw an IP packet on top of it? We're getting deep into industrial protocols, optimizations that support these type of environments. We start offloading some of the GPU resources, for example, like we talked about again on the robotics panel. The demands of the network become astronomical. I think at Ericsson we're in a really good position because we started kind of the hard stuff first with folks like Newmont with the remote control and autonomy. So we've had to sharpen our sword in our product portfolio over the last couple of years. I often say I'm so glad I'm not in R&D because seeing those guys struggle with develop the roadmap and getting these advanced features out in a timely manner has been monumental what they've done. So I think we're well positioned, and this is my advertisement part if you guys aren't catching that. I think we're well positioned to capture the future of the market, and a lot of that is because the market is shifting to become more complex and more demanding of the network. And I feel like we're in a good position to meet the market where it's at there. All right, that's it. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but happy to spend some time and take some questions, or if we want to have open dialogue, that's great too.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Justin. Well, let me just stop the screen broadcast. Okay, super. I think there's some questions in here. Let me see. So do the VR headsets in your use case have native 5G? I haven't seen many such devices. Similar issue to that with native 5G and robotics that you discussed earlier. I've seen Ericsson working with Vario, and they don't offer any kind of wireless VR headsets, for example.
Yeah, I wish I had my device team on here. They might say that I'm wrong. I haven't seen that either. I've seen either like a dongle solution, but also what I've seen is that there's a wearable solution where on one side it'll have like a personal Wi-Fi access point. That's a low power access point, and on the other side it'll do the 5G connectivity to the network. We see this a lot. We have a partner, RealWear. You guys are probably familiar with RealWear. That's just one example where they're using a dongle. Connect It is an example of a partner where they have the wearable that's doing kind of like the translation between local Wi-Fi to connecting to the 5G. And then if you have an environment, it doesn't necessarily have to be just what you're wearing. We have an auto manufacturer, and they're using our Cradlepoint devices to create kind of a Wi-Fi bubble that's using EP5G or private 5G for the backhaul. That happens to be new band 78 on that one with 5G. But then you create a really good Wi-Fi environment that's isolated and dedicated to maybe that VR use case.
Great. Another question from Wendy Ooms. How do you see the security of private 5G networks? Is it business as usual, or are specific security measures needed to meet the demands of the clients?
Yeah, so security. I'll answer this, and I think we've got some great people that were on the panel, and also I'd like to hear maybe from industry leaders on this one as well. But to be fully transparent, I would say 80% of the time it's business as usual. 20% of the time it's absolutely critical, and you have to try to bridge that, right? So 5G comes with a huge amount of inherent security, particularly relative to Wi-Fi. But at the same time, there are standards out there that need to be met to operate in certain environments. I am not a security expert, so I can't go down the path there. But I know, again, I'm just throwing out 80-20, maybe 20% of the time we are challenged to say, yes, we do adhere to certain, government or industry standards that are requirement. Sometimes there's security structure that we need to work within, like a public key structure that's infrastructure that's being built, and we have partners that help support us there as well. That's my view from Ericsson, and admittedly it's a little bit of a shallow view, but that's what I've seen.
Okay. One of the questions that we've had throughout the day numerous times by different players in the field is they don't see a problem in terms of the demand out there. The problem, it seems to be in the cost of being able to meet it. And people always talk about the big vendors pricing being really expensive and making it difficult for these networks to be deployed. Any thoughts of that? What are you thinking of from Ericsson in terms of being able to address some of the smaller markets, trying to make things more accessible, maybe small cells, different ways of bringing costs down? Because the one thing that always surprises people is how much end customers is not just they start off and look at the sticker shock on the capex or the actual equipment, core hardware, radios, etc. But what really shocks them is the cost of services very often that go with it.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make a joke about also being shocked at the cost of services. Yeah, so I guess first of all, there's going to be a spend for connectivity, and depending on the environment you're in, that's going to dictate that spend. Um, a couple of people I was on the panel with, at least, we were in Miami not too long ago at a 5G OT Alliance meeting, and we got to hear from some great leaders in the industry. One of them was Georgia Pacific, and they were talking about covering paper plants, right? So these are paper mills, which are largely outdoor factories, if you will. And so today, they're using Wi-Fi, and the pain point they were talking about was the Wi-Fi refresh, obviously coverage in an outdoor environment, et cetera, et cetera. So they were investigating 5G, and one of the comments that was made on stage, so I can repeat it here, was that they had gotten a quote from one of the large MNOs. I won't use the name. And I think we in the industry, we know that, hey, the larger vendors like Ericsson, I believe we have a premium product and that drives a premium price. And if you try to sell that through an MNO with licensed spectrum on top of it, that demands even more of a premium. So we're at probably the very tip top there. And his response was, yeah, that was in line with my Wi-Fi bill, because there's so many access points that need to be deployed in this environment. And then he was probably also looking at a refresh cycle and the services that are associated with that. So what I'm getting at is, it would be great to drive our price down and use that as a monolithic view of how do we get more market share. But the reality is there's a great deal of market, I would say more at the top of the market. And you've seen that's kind of where Ericsson has focused, because we have a right to play there. But also, our cost is in line with either our direct competitors in the market or with alternative solutions. Now, I'll lean over my skis just a little bit here and say that we're not immune to the fact that we could go further down into the market. And if you go back to my triangle, it's kind of price at the top and less price at the bottom. We would, of course, like to expand our footprint. And so I think you'll see Ericsson this year become more aggressive in finding ways to go, penetrate further into the market. And I can't say more about that, but you'll probably see that in the coming months.
Okay, excellent. Dustin, thank you. I think, that's been quite revealing in terms of the view from, I'd say, if we take your pyramid and we had to draw a vendor diagram there as well, I think Ericsson would be at the top of the pack there. So view from the mountaintop. So thank you for that. I think it's a great way to pull everything to an end. Just in terms of a quick summary, everybody, the kinds of things that we picked up, beginning from the start of the day, is that the demand is there, but how can we make the cost, bring the cost and complexity down to meet it? So it's not a question of demand. There were lots of questions in terms of what I've noticed here. My takeaway from here is, whereas 5 years ago when we started Uptime, people were talking about pilots and stuff. Today, the kinds of questions we're having is, what are day two operations like, right? How do you manage the network? How do you get statistics? How do we improve the network? So it's really nice to see that today we're not talking about, can we deploy private networks? Are there use cases? We're actually talking about, how do these networks live? What is the day-to-day life of a network? We heard one of the new things that I learned today, and Dustin, you may be interested in this as well, was that from Pegatron, when they were talking about their deployments in Asia, was that when you go into a lot of factories in India, Thailand, and emerging markets, a lot of them don't even have basic Ethernet in there, right? So when they're starting to digitalize, it's not, do you bring in wireless instead of Ethernet? It's almost like they did the consumer leap in broadband. Did they just skip fixed line altogether and went to wireless? You're seeing the same thing in the factories, where there's no Ethernet cabling. They're going straight to Ethernet PDUs on 5G, right? So that's something that was a new insight for me as well. We heard in Asia constraint on spectrum from the major operators themselves, very bullish on private networks, but they were saying themselves that they can only deploy in rural areas because in urban areas, their spectrum is really constrained. And they were seeing big use cases in terms of things like hospitals, et cetera, because again, in a lot of Asia, the Ethernet infrastructure isn't there, the fiber infrastructure isn't there, and the cable infrastructure isn't there. So you're going in and putting in, if you're trying to digitalize, it really is a wireless only type of market. So spectrum is a big challenge. And one of the themes that also came out today, I think across everything, is the network as a GPU. But we need the memo needs to reach a few people. But that's our task between now and the next uptime to see if we can get more of the robotics manufacturers and other players in the physical AI space to move towards 5G. Good point that we learned from Gianluca as well, that the Unitary robots stuff coming out of China has got 5G modems built in. So it's coming, and hopefully when we meet here next year, we'll be having lots of humanoid deployments that we can actually talk about with native 5G and AR and VR glasses with native 5G as well. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. I'd also like to thank Stephen at Cable Free for giving us this wonderful facility here in Oxford to host the meet and greet and meet and talk for the speakers who wished to attend in person. So with that, thank you, everybody. If you want to meet Ericsson at Mobile World Congress, please ping Dustin, and I'm sure he'll try and arrange a demo. Same with everybody else here as well. Look forward to seeing you at MWC. If you want to do any meetings, please ping people or ping me, and I'll with who you want to meet, and I'll pass your message on to them. And thank you all. See you in Barcelona, and we'll see you during the year over the course of normal business, or if not, at Uptime 2027. Thank you, everybody. Good night, and God bless.
Thank you, Nanda.
Thank you, Nanda.
Thank you.